Hey guys, coming back for Arrow Season 4, Episode 12, Unchained, and I was really looking forward to this episode. Last week's episode I really enjoyed, and they really set up for a really fun episode this week, and while this episode wasn't exactly fun, there were definitely some fun scenes in this episode, but this was an amazing episode. I mean, there was so much great stuff about this episode, but one of the things I love about this episode is that Damien Dark wasn't anywhere to be found here. We didn't need him in this episode. There was so much going on. We didn't need Dark here. I even like the flashbacks in this episode. That's how much this episode was. In fact, guys, I think this was probably the best episode of the season. I really do. I mean, everything that was going on was so interesting. It was emotional, it was very funny, and it was so entertaining. I just loved this episode, and I really feel that they've really, I think, made things a lot more interesting. But let's just get into this episode because there was so much great stuff about it, and let's just get into it. So we start at Nanda Parbat, and we see a woman Taliban brings food to Nyssa, tells the guard that Malcolm wants to make sure the prisoner leaves, and when Taliban goes in, she tells Nyssa that the pepper is from the garden and grows strong in her absence, and once Taliban leaves, Nyssa opens a pepper, finds a small knife inside, she runs for the gate, kills a guard, takes his sword, fights her way out, and in the central chamber, the guards turn each other. Nyssa and Dennis arrive, and the turncoat guards kneel to Nyssa. Taliban says the lotus has been found in Kayushu and warns that it's well guarded, and we don't really know what's going on here. Why Nyssa's fighting these guards, what's going on there. It's all very interesting. So in Star City at Amertech, Felicity, who is now called Overwatch, which seeing Felicity just being so happy about being called Overwatch, I just love. I mean, cute Felicity moments. There are two sides of Felicity. There's the really bitchy side that nobody really likes, and then there's the adorable Felicity, which is just, I love this side of Felicity. When you have this side of Felicity, when they're calling her Overwatch and she's like, you have no idea how much I love having that name. I just love it. I think it's adorable. I really do. So Felicity tells the team that the burglar's heading straight toward them. He parkours up the wall. Green Arrow and Speedy move in on the roof. They split up to cover the two exits, and Speedy finds the man. They fight, and she knocks him over the roof. As he hangs on, she draws an arrow, threatens to shoot him. Green Arrow arrives just as Speedy passes out, and the archer pulls her up while the burglar escapes. So after dropping Thea off at her apartment to rest, Oliver, Diggle, and Laurel return to the bunker. Thea claimed that she was exhausted, and Oliver points out that exposure to the Lazarus Pit hasn't caused Thea to pass out. He blames himself for not keeping a better eye on his sister, and I understand Oliver's points here. I mean, Oliver does always blame himself, but here, I think it kind of makes sense. I mean, he's been so into the campaign and what he was doing with Dark that this really wasn't his fault. He just had so much more on his plate that he really wasn't able to keep tabs on his sister, which is obviously something that Oliver has always promised to do. You know, we know that Oliver always would keep tabs on his sister. He just really hasn't had time to because he's had so much else to deal with between what happened with Felicity and everything. He hasn't really had time to see his sister's health. It has nothing to do with the Lazarus Pit. So Felicity explains that the burglar took a network mapper designed to scan computer infrastructure and find vulnerabilities, and Palmer Tech is one of the last viable businesses in Star City, and she has to present Curtis's new technology to the meeting, which I love that we saw Curtis again. Curtis is a character that I didn't think we'd see again, and I'm glad we are seeing it, because if you remember, Curtis started because Felicity said he was developing a new technology, and he wasn't really going to develop it, but now he is, and we actually get to see that technology in this episode, which I really loved. So Oliver offers to go with her for moral support, and Felicity says that she's got it, and again, this is the Felicity that I love. She doesn't care that she's in a wheelchair. She really doesn't. I mean, Felicity doesn't seem like she's changed at all. The Felicity we saw last week is gone. That's, very scared side of Felicity, not knowing really what her future was going to hold. She doesn't really care. She's back to being that badass Felicity, which I love, and this is why Felicity is one of my favorite parts of Arrow. I love her character. She's fantastic. So, later at Palmer Tech, Felicity rehearses her presentation for Curtis and Dennis. She bumps her wheelchair into the podium, and Dennis asks Curtis to leave, and once they're alone, Dennis tells Felicity, warns that their stock has been down since she's crippled, and says that they have to put their best foot forward. He warns that anything less than a perfect launch of a power cell will sink the company, and after a moment, Felicity does agree. And you can tell that obviously she has a lot of demands, but it's just nice to see Felicity going back to work, because we didn't know if she was going to be okay, and just seeing her back to work, I really like. So that night, Oliver visits Thea and finds Malcolm there. Malcolm insists that Thea needs to take life to balance her bloodlust, and the life will come from her if she doesn't indulge the bloodlust. And he explains that Constantine restored Sarah's balance, and Thea tells Oliver that Dark briefly sated her bloodlust by using his powers on her, and Malcolm warns that even if Dark were willing to help, he and Hive have disappeared. So there's really nothing they can do because Hive is just gone because of what happened with Andy. And Laurel calls and says that the burglar is struck again at Cadmus Tech, taking a weapon, and Thea tells Oliver to go because nothing will change, and he heads for Cadmus. Oliver spots the burglar on the roof, goes up after him, finally cuts him off, knocks the thief to the floor, yanks off his mask, and it's Roy. Yes, Roy is back in this episode, which, even though it was a one-episode appearance, it was just nice to see Roy again. I mean, I feel like his presence has really been missing on the show, and not really like the show he was ever that essential, but that character and the relationships he had and who he was to Oliver kind of been missing, and I'm glad to see Roy back. I definitely like seeing that. Roy punches Oliver, runs off, and obviously, they don't know why he's here, whatever. I love Felicity's line of all the people that have returned. I just thought was hilarious. I love that. It really does sum up a lot of this season. Something I loved about this entire season is that they're willing to make fun of themselves, and Felicity, I think, did that really well here. So back at the bunker, Oliver tells the others what he saw. Felicity confirms that Roy stole a miniature explosive, and Alex calls Oliver. Oliver goes up to the campaign office. Alex tells him that someone else is running for mayor, and that is Ruve Adams, who has come out of nowhere. And obviously, Oliver recognized her from when he saved her from anarchy, but tells Alex that he's never seen her before. Obviously, he has to make it seem like he hasn't seen her when he has, and very interesting is she's just kind of come up out of nowhere. He doesn't know why she's part of this campaign. All he knows is that he saved her from anarchy, and now all of a sudden she's just randomly come back up. So definitely very interesting that Ruve is running against Oliver, and I like that we got the campaign back here, because honestly, guys, I forgot that Oliver was running for mayor. I really did. I mean, they haven't really talked about in the past 2 episodes that I just sort of forgot. Not that I wasn't into it. I've really been into Oliver's campaign. It's just we haven't really focused it in the last 2 episodes, and finally here they talked again about it, because I forgot. There was just so much else to deal with that I completely forgot about Oliver being mayor. So I'm happy that we brought that back up, because that's one of my favorite things they've done this season. So we go to 5 years ago, and I really enjoyed the flashbacks in this episode. I thought they were actually very interesting. They did a good job with keeping the flashbacks just as interesting as the main story. Did it connect to the main story? No, but I still thought it was very interesting. So, Raider torches Oliver for information on the maps he recovered from the freighter, and when Tiana objects, Raider has a soldier take him out. Suddenly, an archer breaks in, shoots down first Raider's men, then Raider. Oliver looks up, and at first thinks that it's Mai, Shadow's daughter, but it's actually Shadow. Shadow is back, and he can't believe that it's Shadow. He's obviously freaking out because she died, as we know in Season 2, but it was nice to see her again, because this was Sid care about, and if you remember, really wanted to help, if you remember. Obviously, Slade loved her and things like that, but I like seeing Shadow back. That was something that I thought was very well done here. So Ruve leaves her campaign headquarters, finds Green Arrow waiting for her. He says that he wants to meet Dark and has a proposition for him, and walks off, and we don't know what that is right now, but definitely I think he's going to try to convince Ruve to drop out, because it's clear that Dark is trying to get Ruve. I don't know really if Dark is the one that wants Ruve to run, but there has to be a reason why Ruve is running. So at the bunker, Felicity examines the schematics of the 2 stolen pieces of equipment. She realizes that if the 2 pieces are somehow combined, they would make a web nuke capable of destroying the internet. The device needs a power source, and Palmer Tech's new power cell would be ideal. Curtis is working in his lab when Roy comes up from him from behind. Curtis tries to run with the cell. Roy attacks him. The technician throws one of his T-spears at him, and Roy catches it and throws it back. It knocks Curtis through a wall. Then the team arrives, and Felicity warns that there's something wrong with Roy, and Roy throws the cell out the window to a waiting drone. Felicity gives Green Arrow instructions over the radio. The archer then shoots Roy in the chest with a tranq arrow, and there's something that's just not right. They don't know what's going on with him, but there's definitely something going on. So the team takes the unconscious Roy back to the lair. Felicity says that the Faraday cage built into the walls should nullify any broadcast waves and has them remove the camera contact from Roy's eye. Oliver gives Roy a stimulant and they explain that they made it look like they killed him. He heard what happened to Felicity and offers his condolences and says that he got made, and the blackmailer threatens to expose Roy, which would lead the police to Green Arrow, and Roy says that the blackmailer calls himself the Calculator. And the Calculator is the main villain that they deal with in this episode. And basically, I like that we found out that Roy was working with the Calculator. It was a good way for Roy to return. I think it didn't feel like, something I like is that, yes, this was a one character, but really it ends up not being. We'll get into that because it becomes a lot more interesting. So he couldn't come to them without Calculator learning about the team, and Felicity warns that Calculator has all the components he needs and starts backtracking the components. And I love Felicity's line where he says he called himself the Calculator, and Felicity's like, well, this is what happens when villains name themselves. I thought that was a great line because, we're so used to, like, Cisco naming the bad guys and things like that, and them naming the bad guys, but having, a bad guy that names himself is very rare, and I definitely really love Felicity's line there. Very funny stuff. So 5 years ago, we see that Shadow frees Oliver, says that she's a vision that he's having because of his injuries. She says that Oliver has to forgive himself for what he's done and should return to his family. Oliver says that he can't go back to his family the way that he is, and Shadow tells him that it's time to start changing. She says that he has to let go of his darkness, and when Oliver says he doesn't know how, Shadow says that she will teach him how to do that. He doesn't really know how to get rid of it. So, very interesting here. So back in the present, Nyssa and Taliban go to a Shinto shrine in Kyushu, and Nyssa says that she must go in by herself. She tells Taliban to go back and tell the others that the war is over if she doesn't re-emerge, and then goes inside, and Tatsu Yamashiro Katana is there, and Nyssa greets her by name as member of the Crescent Order. Katana says that she has found a purpose, and it is her responsibility to keep the Lotus safe. They draw their swords and fight. They are evenly matched, and Nyssa says that she has to be somewhere in a matter that concerns Oliver. There's something going on there, and she suggests that they lay down their swords and Tatsu listen to what she has to say. Because obviously she doesn't just want to continue fighting her, she obviously wants something to do with Oliver. So, the whole episode, you can definitely tell that there's something that Nyssa wants to Oliver, we just don't know what it is yet. So Oliver apologized to Roy for letting him claim to be Green Arrow, and when Roy, because if you remember, the way we ended things off, Roy had to pretend to be the Arrow, and basically, pretend that he died because of the fact that, as we know, the Arrow was a fugitive at the time, and Roy's worried that that's going to happen again. So Roy wonders what he's guilty about now, and Oliver tells him about Thea, and Roy goes to see Thea. Such a great scene. I just love this scene. She starts coughing, the wound from Roz opens on her chest, and it's just a really powerful scene. She sees Roy, she hasn't seen him in so long, and it's really powerful. I mean, she can't believe that she's actually being knowing that she is not well. She thinks that she's hallucinating and that he's not actually there. It's a really powerful scene. If you guys remember, one of the best parts of seasons 2 and 3 was the relationship between Roy and Thea. We haven't had that. We've had Oliver and Thea, but we really haven't had Roy and Thea, so it was kind of cool to see these two again. I definitely like that. And of course, yeah, we did have that short appearance from him in the penultimate episode, but I don't really remember it. I don't really remember the way that went. And basically, Malcolm and Laurel come in. Malcolm tells Thea to stay strong until it passes, and after a moment, the wound does heal. And at the bunker, Felicity tells Oliver that she found a flaw in the OS code of the contact camera and can find Calculator. She does it, and Calculator is waiting for her. He congratulates Felicity on breaking through her encryption. Now, what's very interesting is they keep cutting back between Calculator's fake voice and then his actual voice, which doesn't seem important, but becomes a lot more important at the end of the episode, and I'll talk about why that's so important. He says that he doesn't want to bring down the internet, realize that she's keeping him talking while she breaks through his firewall. As he counters her, Calculator says that he's going to make a statement by taking down a city. He shuts Felicity out. She realizes that if Calculator overlords Star City's electoral grid, he could kill everyone in the city. So clearly they're dealing with someone that's very advanced, really does know what they're doing, and the others arrive. Felicity runs a search to see where the web nuke would cause the much damage. She remembers that Ray worked out a battering ram that would let her get through Calculator's firewall. So, back to 5 years ago, Shadow's trying to tell Oliver that he's in love with Tiana, and he insists that he doesn't love her. Mai points out, and basically, Shadow points out that she has nothing but help. She's done nothing but help him despite the fact that he killed her brother, and Oliver finds a stone in his hand, and she disappears. So, obviously, she's told him what he needs to know, and if they're really setting this up where he could be in love with Tiana, very interesting because, for all we know, he could run into Tiana again in the past, in the present, so that could definitely be very interesting. So back in the present, Felicity goes up to Curtis's lab, asks about the battering ram. He's surprised to see her easily wheel herself around. She finds the battering ram. Curtis points out that she's much better when trying to save the city. He knows that Dennis is giving the presentation and says that her presentation would have been successful if she set aside her doubts, and Curtis says that Palmer Tech needs the self-confident Felicity, and that's something that she needs to get. She needs to be self-confident because she's best when she is self-confident. So Oliver visits Thea and says that he arranged a meeting with Dark. He tells his sister that he has something to trade Dark and says that he won't let Thea die. Thea tells him that it's not up to him and he can't fix it, and Oliver walks out to the living room, and I like that Thea's telling him that this is not really his fault. There's nothing he can really do about this. It's very interesting. So Oliver walks out of the living room. Malcolm knows that he's going to bargain with Dark. He agrees with Thea that it's her decision and tells Oliver that sometimes the greatest act of love is no action at all, which honestly I think is very true. I mean, Oliver's always wanting to do something, but here I think it's best if he does nothing. I mean, obviously, Thea does not want him to do something, that he's going to regret. And we know last season, that's one of the reasons why things turned out so badly for Oliver, because he decided to join, Ra's al Ghul and basically become part of the League of Assassins, which was a horrible decision, and it turned everyone against him and just made his life a living hell. And we know all season he's been trying to not, make things dark. He's been trying to stay positive, and I like that Malcolm's telling him, look, if you want to stay positive about this, you can't really do anything here because we know what happened the last time. So definitely very interesting thing, and it really goes to what Oliver's been doing all season. So at the bunker, Felicity used the battering ram to track down Calculator to the Flint Hill data farm, and Green Arrow gets there first, watches as a squad of mercenaries break in, attached to the device. Calculator is monitoring them and detects Felicity hacking him. Meanwhile, the rest of the team arrive, attack the mercenaries with Roy's help, and it was awesome to see Arsenal again. It was awesome here. Felicity warns that the web nuke could kill 8 million people. Calculator warns that she can only remove the web nuke from on-site, and Felicity says that she has friends to do it. And we see Diggle, Black Canary, and Arsenal. They get to the web nuke, and more Calculator's mercenaries surround them. Green Arrow drops down and takes out the men. Meanwhile, Calculator expresses the web nuke. Nothing happens. Felicity says that she pawned him, and Calculator starts hacking her firewall. Meanwhile, Felicity tells them that they have to blow up the web nuke because it's hardwired in, and Calculator's jamming the trigger frequencies. They realize that someone will have to stay behind and do it manually, and Roy volunteers to do that, insisting that he can outrun the blast and says that he has to do because it's his life. And I like what Diggle says. He says, even though he's red, you're not the Flash. I thought that was honestly kind of a funny quote, but it's true. I mean, Diggle, Roy is not, the Flash, he doesn't really have these powers, so it might not necessarily work. So after a moment, Green Arrow agrees. Diggle and Black Canary head out, and Green Arrow tells Roy to run like hell before following them. Roy tells the mercenaries to get out, then aims an arrow at the C4 charge attack to the web nuke. He shoots and runs just as Calculator triggers the web nuke. The bomb goes off. Roy slides to safety on a line. He was like this close to dying. I honestly thought they were going to kill off Roy. I really thought that was going to happen. So back at the bunker, Roy tells the others that he'll have to go even deeper underground now that Calculator knows who he is, and Felicity installed a virus to wipe out everything Calculator had on Roy, and Roy assures Oliver that Thea will be okay. Oliver says that he'll be back, he'll back Thea no matter what she does, and he and Roy hug. So it makes sense why Roy obviously has to leave. I know there are going to be people upset, oh, Roy had to go, it's kind of stupid, it's a cop-out. I understand that, but I feel like it makes sense. I mean, Roy isn't part of this team anymore. He's not. He's gone on his own. He's left the team. He can't be part of the team. Obviously, he's doing it to protect Oliver, and he's going to still do that. So I like seeing that. It's very much the case with Ray and Sarah when they were on season 4. They're not part of the show anymore. They're just there for a guest appearance, and it's very much like if Ray and Sarah were to go back on the show. Again, they're not part of the show anymore. They're just there for this appearance, and they're gonna leave at some point. So 5 years ago, Tiana tends Oliver to in his cell. He wakes up from high-induced hallucination, tells Tiana that he killed her brother rather than Conklin, and Oliver warns that there was a darkness inside of him, and he thinks he's found a way to escape it, and first he needs to earn her forgiveness and tells Tiana that there's no excusing what he did. She breaks into tears, turns away. Oliver looks at the stone in his hand, and this is really, I think, setting up him being the Arrow, because as we know, the whole point of these flashbacks is to show him dark as the Arrow. So I really feel like they're starting to explore that, and I definitely really do like that. So back in the present, at the presentation, Curtis assures Felicity that she'll be great. She goes up, gives the presentation as Oliver watches from the audience. Felicity unveils the power cell, which is a 100% recyclable battery that is powering the entire building, and that'd be awesome. That'd be awesome if we had the power cell. So everyone applauds, and Calculator, sitting next to the unwitting Oliver, says that Felicity is something else, and this is very interesting. We know the Calculator's in the crowd. Why is he there? We don't know. So Roy tends to Thea before he goes and admits that he thought about staying for her. Thea tells him to live an amazing life and have a family, and I like that Thea's telling him, you don't want to be with me. You just don't. My life's too dangerous. I want you to move on. I want you to be happy. It felt like a really good departure from Thea. I mean, I love the line of them saying that they love each other. It's just so sad because obviously you know that Roy and Thea can never be together, and I think Thea really does want that life with Roy, but it's just now her life is too complicated. You know, she's now Speedy. She's not the Thea that he knew 2 years ago. She's much different now, and Thea really can't be with anyone right now. That's one of the reasons her and Alex haven't really worked out, and that's one of the reasons why that relationship isn't really working for me, and I'm happy they didn't have scenes together here. I think she has much better chemistry with Roy than she does with Alex, and that's one of the reasons why her and Alex haven't really worked out. Not that I'm saying she can't be with other people, I just feel like now Thea can't really be with anyone. So Oliver leaves with Felicity, assures her that she was amazing. He goes to check on Thea, and Felicity turns to see Calculator and calls him Dad. So that is why we kept cutting back between Calculator's voice and Calculator in the real world, because Calculator is her father, which makes this a lot more interesting because it means that now that her father's back in town, he probably is going to tell her what's going on. I definitely feel like she does not know what he's doing. Obviously, she doesn't know that her father's the Calculator, and we'll have to see if he does in fact tell her that he's a Calculator, because that's very interesting. Why he didn't tell her, why he was hiding this from her, we don't really know. We don't know the kind of relationship that her and her father have. It's clear she hasn't seen him in a while, and this is definitely going to be very interesting to see what happens between Felicity and her father, because, again, they haven't really talked a lot. I'm looking forward to seeing what happens there. So Malcolm comes out as Oliver arrives. Oliver says that he never made contact with Dark. He admits that he couldn't have done it without Malcolm and thanks him. Laurel comes out, tells them that Thea's in trouble. They take the comatose woman to the hospital. The doctor warns Oliver that the prognosis isn't good. Oliver begs her not to go, and she's dying, really. She's dying at this point. So Nyssa finally gets to Oliver. As we know, she was trying to get to Oliver the whole episode. She says, and basically she tells him what is going on here and why she is trying to get to him, what she wants from him, which is obviously something that we need to know, what she wanted from Oliver. Basically, the doctor warns Oliver that the prognosis isn't good. She says that Raish once told her of a lotus that can counter the effects of the Lazarus Pit. She will give it to Oliver on one condition: he must kill Malcolm. So yes, Oliver has to kill Malcolm. Holy shit, this is huge. I can't believe that we're getting into this because this is very interesting. The fact that he has to kill Malcolm, we'll have to see if Oliver actually does go through with that, because that will actually kill Malcolm. I mean, knowing that Malcolm is Thea's father, something that Thea wants, obviously this is a decision that I think Oliver really needs to think about. And he's had decisions that he needs to think about before, but especially this. I mean, this is worse than him joining the League of Assassins, obviously. Killing Malcolm Merlyn is something that's very interesting because Malcolm Merlyn is gone from one of their enemies to now one of their allies. We do know, though, that Malcolm is hiding some secrets, though, like what's going on with him and Savage. We still know that he has some sort of relationship with Vandal Savage, and we don't really know what that's about, so maybe they'll get into that. What's going to happen, though? What does Nyssa exactly want him to do? Obviously, there's something that's going to counter the effects of the Lazarus Pit. We'll have to see what happens with that. Definitely, that's very interesting, what's going to happen there. Felicity, though, in the Calculator, she does not know that her father is the Calculator, and I think that definitely is very interesting. And is he going to tell her what's going on? Is she going to find out? That could definitely be very interesting to see what's going to happen there. I really love that her father's back in town. It's made this storyline so much more interesting. It's really taken something that could have been a one-off and made it so much more, and I love that. I definitely think it's very interesting what's going on there. Let's talk about this whole thing going on with, with Ruve. Why is Ruve, doing, against Oliver in her campaign. Why is this happening? What is Dark's motive here? What does Oliver want to trade her? We don't really know, and we'll have to see what happens there. And as we know, Malcolm told Oliver not to get involved with what's going on with Thea, but Nyssa's basically telling him that he has to, so who should Oliver really listen to here? Should he trust Malcolm, or should he trust Thea? Should he trust Nyssa? Who really is the one to listen to? I'm not really sure. This is definitely very interesting, and while most times I don't necessarily trust Malcolm and what he says, and the offers that Nyssa have given Oliver before haven't exactly been the best, but this is something where it really could benefit him because it would get Malcolm out of his life. It would get the stress over that. Definitely, there's a lot of things. I mean, that could be like his revenge for even killing Tommy. I mean, Malcolm, it's we still, obviously it's been a long time, but you guys have to remember that Malcolm killed Tommy, and that's something that Oliver, I still think, is going through. He still obviously is going through it. I think he's definitely moved on from it, but he still killed his best friend, and I think him killing Malcolm would still kind of be like redemption in many ways. Definitely it would be like that. So that definitely is very interesting to see if he is going to go through with killing Malcolm. We'll have to see what happens there. The flashbacks as well are getting very interesting. I really feel like we're getting into Oliver possibly becoming the Dark Arrow, and if that's really where we're going, I am extremely interested in that because that's what I've wanted to see all season long, and I don't really think that we've delved into that in the flashbacks, and I really think they're starting to make them a lot more interesting, and I really do like seeing that. I would really hope that we do see more of that. It seems like right now, Tiana, he's kind of leaving because he realizes that he's very dark and they can't really be together, and if Oliver was in love with Tiana, the reason I don't think we've heard about her is because I don't think anything happened between them. I think that Oliver wanted to be with her, but he knew he really couldn't because the fact that he's just not, he can't be with someone like her. He can't right now. It's not in him, and it's really sad. Let's talk about Roy. Are we going to see Roy again? I don't know. I feel like now's a good time for Roy to leave. Like I said, Roy's not really part of this show anymore, and it's really sad, but it really felt like this was kind of his departure, where we realized why he had to leave and things like that. Because I don't really think we got the proper closure to Roy in last season, and I really feel here we did get that proper closure. We understood why Roy had to leave. We understood why we weren't going to see Roy anymore. I feel like they really explained all that very, very well. So definitely that was something I thought was very well handled. But overall, guys, without a doubt, the best episode of the season. I really love this episode. So much interesting stuff here. It was also very fun. I really loved everything going on here. Especially like I said, with what was going on with the calculator and things like that. Definitely, that's all very interesting. And also just seeing Felicity not letting this, her being paralyzed affect her, I really like seeing, because we know, of course, Felicity's paralyzed and doesn't seem to be affecting her. It seems like after everything she went through last week, it seems like she's over that, and I'm very happy about that. But okay, guys, let me know what you guys saw this episode. I thought this episode was miles better than this week's The Flash. I thought The Flash was very good, but Arrow, honestly, I think it's been a stronger season. I really do. I've really been into Arrow more than The Flash this year, and it's not The Flash has been bad. It's just Arrow in general, I feel like has been a lot more interesting. But over, guys, let me know what you guys saw this episode. We'll see you guys in my next video, which will be for Teen Wolf. I know you guys want me to review that. There will be my next review, and I will see you guys for that. Okay, bye.